Hey everybody, I'm Reverend Jim Keat, the digital minister at the Riverside Church, and this is the Word Made Fresh, the weekly video Bible study where I think you know this by now. If you don't know it, go watch an old video. Let's just dive in. Here we go. So before we dive all the way in, you probably noticed that I'm in a different location for each of these videos. That's because I'm traveling all over the country. So leave a comment and let me know where you are so I can connect with you when I'm in your area. That would be fantastic. Now, this week I'm in North Carolina, just south of Tennessee, north of Georgia, this nice little spot by the Blue Ridge Mountains. Found some fantastic places. Smoky Mountains next week. That video is going to be great. Okay, but this week we are in the Gospel of Luke, Luke chapter 21, verses 5 through 19. Here's what it says. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will this be, and what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray, for many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and 'the time is near.' Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents. Dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you the words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict." Jesus. "You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair on your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." Okay, Jesus, what's up with this one? There's a lot going on here, as there tends to be with everything in this book, and especially everything that Jesus says, and especially all the ways in which we then think we know what it means or impose meaning upon it into our world today. So what we're not going to do in this week's video Bible study, we're not going to dive into the whole end times rabbit trail, make charts and predict things and, wear tinfoil on our heads. No, we're not going into conspiracy theory route. But it's just worth noting a couple things about this text. First, he talks about the destruction of the temple. This temple was the center of their entire life, their religious life, but that was their life. Their religious identity made up their cultural identity in so many ways, and the temple was at the literal center of it. For example, if you ever see in the Bible it says they went up to Jerusalem, that doesn't mean they went north. You can go south and you're still going up to Jerusalem because the temple is on a hill, Jerusalem is on a hill, so you always go up to Jerusalem. It's literally the thing at which everything else revolves around. So at the beginning of this, Jesus is making a prediction saying, that temple, it's going to get destroyed. This immovable object at the center of their religious and cultural identity, the thing around which they make meaning and find hope, poof, gone. And then Jesus goes on into this whole, and when it gets really tough, don't worry. I'm still with you, even if I'm not like with you. I'm with you. And you've got this, and you can do it. So first off, we need to recognize this all actually happens. Jesus makes this prediction saying this temple is going to be destroyed, and then it does. 70 CE, about 30 years or so after this story would have taken place, right around the time when this book, Luke, was probably getting written into the thing we know it today, the temple is destroyed. This is a massive blow to Judaism. They had to completely rethink how they make meaning and orient themselves when they can no longer be centered around a building. This is largely where we see the move to centered around a text. and Christians continue to live in a similar understanding of being centered around a text. Thus, this whole thing, rather than a building. Although sometimes we still center ourselves around buildings. But this is a building. It has a really tall steeple. But it's not the church. The church is the people. But this, I think, is what's really fascinating, and I think a really good starting point for a conversation we could have. What do you do when the thing that gives you meaning goes away? Where do you find hope? Where do you find hope when the thing that grounds you vanishes? How do we find a new hope in the midst of change and uncertainty? Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so think about that for a second, and you're gonna comment below, because I know you are, but let's just pause and talk about Star Wars for a second.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
So the first Star Wars, and by the first Star Wars I mean the fourth Star Wars, because episode 4 came out first. Anyway, let's not get into that. A New Hope. This episode of the Star Wars saga, this is the story that takes place after the Jedi have been destroyed, essentially. The thing that centered the galaxy, the way that they found order and meaning in their lives and keeping justice afloat, was through the Jedi. And this is what those tragic episodes 1, 2, and 3 kind of document. The Jedi were the thing, they were ruling class, they were doing it all, they were maintaining order, largely in a good way. And then, one certain Jedi came in and, brought balance to the Force, which really, balanced the scales of the Jedi who had all the power, and suddenly Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, sorry, spoiler alert, Luke, he is your father, he, destroys the Jedi Order, and they're gone. So here we are in episode 4, Star Wars A New Hope. It's the story you know it. Luke Skywalker meets Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and discovers that the Jedi are not gone. This thing that was destroyed, well, it's not going to come back in the way it was, but it's not gone. At least what's not gone is hope. Hope is not gone, even though the thing that you found security in isn't here anymore. Hope can still be present, alive. It can still grow in us and in spite of us in the world around us. That's Star Wars. We're not preaching a sermon. We're just talking about Star Wars. Well, I think that what Jesus is saying is very parallel. Think about it. Temple, thing that gave cultural and religious structure and order. Kind of like Jedi. Destroyed. Now what? Well, we don't have time to dive into The Empire Strikes Back and all the other movies right now, but let's just maybe sit with the potential parallels in our lives and in our world. What do we do when the Jedi are no longer what they used to be? What do we do when the temple is destroyed? Where do we find hope? What do we do when we live in a post-Christian society? Let's just get those young people to come to church and we'll do it like we used to do it. What, make church great again? Church is great already, and we don't need to go back to some antiquated, too often patriarchal, misogynistic version of it in order to be great again. Maybe we should find new versions of greatness. Sorry, that was a rant. What do we do when capitalism, this thing that so many people and cultures and communities and corporations especially find meaning in, what do we do when we recognize we are in late stage capitalism and this entity, this temple, this Jedi, it too might falter someday? How do you find hope when the thing that gives you security moves? It's like if this rock I'm sitting on just totally shifted. I really hope it doesn't. That would be bad. I'd be in that water. There's probably snakes. No, there's no snakes, I hope. It would be bad because I'd be in the water and wet and cold and my phone would get wet. That's as bad. Okay, that's not that bad. But for us in our world, I want us to really explore what do we rely on? What are the things that we find security in? Church, capitalism, your job, your family. What would happen if those things weren't there? Sometimes that's a real tragedy. Family passes away, jobs end for all sorts of reasons. Other times it's just society continuing to change. Our post-Christian society does not mean we need to try to make everyone back to what it used to be. Perhaps the church should evolve as well. Now, I like to think that, when it comes to matters of faith, it's a little cliche, but faith is a journey. It's not about, where you're going. It's about the going. The Bible, this whole book, everything we talk about with theology, I don't see it as a map, I see it as a compass. A map kind of gives you a destination, a compass gives you a direction. So that means that change is expected and innovation is assumed. Things are not going to be the way they were yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, a decade ago, a century ago. I mean, come on, a millennia ago? Whew, a millennia ago, wow. How do we be people of faith in this ever-changing world? And how do we be people with an ever-changing faith? I'm just gonna leave this one open-ended for you in the comments. What are the things that you rely on for hope and security? How do you find hope when those things shift? Where do you find a new hope? And faith is a journey, change is expected, innovation is assumed. Okay, I'm gonna now successfully stand up and not fall in. I'll see you in the comments. Leave your comments, typity type, click, click, ding. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Word Made Fresh. And I'll be in the Smoky Mountains. Yes! I'll see you there. Well, I'll see you there through this thing. Unless you're actually there, that'd be awesome. Let me know. All right, talk to you later. I totally just moved a rock. The secure foundation has changed. Okay, bye.